Now, over the weekend, more hostile rhetoric and behavior from Iran's extremist leaders. The U.S. has now launched multiple strikes against threats inside of Iran over the last week, countering drone missile attacks. Of course, a lot of it surrounding the Strait of Hormuz. According to President Trump, peace talks continue at a rapid pace, despite public statements from Iran to the contrary, claiming that they have been suspended. Here with reaction, Fox News senior strategic analyst, our friend General Jack Keane is with us. The president just put out, too, that he feels that the hardliners have been marginalized. You see the attacks. There's been 3 specific attacks that the president has ordered in the last week. How do you interpret what's happening? Where do you think this is going to land when all's said and done, General?
Yeah, well, first of all, the president is obviously sticking with the diplomatic path here. And he's trying to make it work. And to make it work, he's trying to get all the ceasefire violations under control. And what you're pointing to is that for several weeks now, the Iranians have been conducting attacks in the vicinity of the Straits of Hormuz and also against our U.S. bases and Gulf allies, all in violation of the ceasefire. Drone attacks to try to go after shipping, ballistic missile attacks going after bases. And we have defensively acted against those. What the president does, the way this works, he is giving full authority to Admiral Cooper, the Central Command commander. He doesn't have to ask permission to shoot at Iran because they're doing something aggressive or offensive. He has full authority to respond to that within the means that he wants to apply because they trust him. And that's the way President Trump has always worked with his military commanders. And Cooper's done a great job with that. And then we have the other piece of this. There was a ceasefire on April the 8th that goes overall dealing with Iran, and that's what Iran has been violating these last several weeks. But then there's another ceasefire, Sean, that dealt with Lebanon on April the 17th. And since April the 17th to the date today, Hezbollah has fired 2,400 rockets and drones into northern Israel, so much so that the inhabitants of the northern towns and villages have had to evacuate. There's been 300 wounded civilians and 1 killed as a result of that. Inside Lebanon, there's been 14 IDF soldiers killed, all under the terms of agreement of a ceasefire. And that is absolutely ridiculous. And then the Iranians today got up on their high horse and said, well, we're not going to negotiate at all unless you curb Israel's behavior. I mean, that's pretty shocking, given the fact that Hezbollah has been violating the ceasefire and the Israelis are in a defensive crouch, not able to conduct offensive operations. The result of that is President Trump has brought both sides to a halt. At least we've got a verbal agreement. I know Israel will abide by that agreement. We have plenty of evidence since April the 17th that Hezbollah will not. And I'm assuming the president, if Hezbollah violates this, like they have in the past, that he'll let Israel loose and do what they need to do to adequately defend themselves and also conduct some offensive operations to take this capability. Back to the main event, obviously, is trying to work through the diplomatic channels. And as you mentioned, the political side seems to be comfortable with trying to make a deal. The IRGC side, they are the ones who are doing all of what I just mentioned. They supervise and direct Hezbollah, and obviously the attacks in the Straits of Hormuz, the IRGC is doing that themselves. So, yes, there seems to be a contradiction there between the political and the military. Now, the problem is IRG seems to have final control, at least with the Ayatollah, and it remains to be seen what happens here. The president, I think, is doing the right thing in saying this. Look, I have some patience here. We're going to work through this thing. And he's going to give them ample opportunity to come together and make what he considers the perfect deal. And likely the reason why the MOU is held up, Sean, is over the Straits of Hormuz. Likely the words may not be exactly the way we want them because Iran wants to still maintain some control over it. Also, Iran has stated publicly many times they want money up front as a sign of goodwill, quote unquote. And President Trump's not going to do that. And I would imagine the Iranians have some words in the MOU that are not satisfactory to President Trump when it comes to nuclear, all things nuclear. So I think he said it may take another week to get the MOU. Remember, this is just a draft to go into a 60-day clock for negotiations. That's kind of where we are. The one thing I'd add to what I just said, Sean, you know this. The Iranians are playing a game here with us. They want to stretch this out as close to the midterms as they possibly can, believing that if they do so, it's less likely or not likely at all that the president would ever trigger military operations that close to the political event. That's likely a miscalculation, and because they don't know who Trump is. That's exactly what he did after the 60-day warning he gave Israel. He gave the Iranians prior to the 12-day war. On the 61st day, he green-lighted Israel to attack.
All right, General Jack Keane, great analysis as always. Thank you for being with us. All right, thanks for watching. Check out my new podcast, Hanging Out with Me, Sean Hannity. The big interviews, the debates you won't get anywhere else. Like and subscribe for new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday.